Awesome. We got a little buzzer there and we are live. How's it going? Today I have a special guest from Allbridge with me. I have Andre, the CEO. How are you doing, man?
I'm all good. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's amazing to have someone like Allbridge come on, especially kind of as the multi-chain space continues to grow. Something like a bridge protocol that has lots of liquidity ramps set up is incredibly important. So just to kind of kick it off, I know I did a slight introduction. It'd be nice to kind of hear from yourself what your kind of role is at Allbridge and your day-to-day tasks, what you're doing over there at Allbridge.
Okay, so at Allbridge, I'm not really the CEO. We don't have an acting CEO at the moment for the reason that Allbridge is part of the APY Swap Foundation, and we incubated this project and we funded it from the start. And I am CEO at APY Swap Foundation, and because of this reason that this is sort of the part of the whole ecosystem, I decided to go with the co-founder tag as I said, that because it is all part of the foundation and part of the ecosystem, we decided that we don't necessarily need the CEO title role in this particular project.
Awesome. Yeah. And that was something while I was doing some research, I came across APY Swap. And it seems like that's a nice idea to kind of start and build out this ecosystem. So it's cool to see sort of the first project in there being Allbridge and having this massive use case in DeFi. Kind of moving forward, can you give an outline of what Allbridge specifically does, the chains it supports, and why it's important for the user?
Yeah, sure. So we designed Allbridge having in mind that we want to give our users freedom to migrate their liquidity from which chain they want to whatever chain they want to. And I know that currently a multi-chain and cross-chain projects are interesting, and there is a lot of interest towards them. So the people want to find a way to move their liquidity here and there. The truth is that most of those bridges support only Ether virtual machine related chains. So it is easy today in this market to find a bridge between Binance Smart Chain and Ether, for example. But it is quite difficult to find bridges to non-EVM chains, let's say to Solana in our case, or to Terra, or to other chains that are not connected. And because we're here on Solana news, and obviously our main priority is Solana chain, and for us it is too. We even used in the very beginning, if people dig it up, we used the name of Solbridge rather than Allbridge. But at some point we decided to change the branding slightly to better represent that we are connecting all the chains together, not just the Solana. And what we had in mind is that how do we add the liquidity to Solana from all the chains available on the market? And by all, I mean not only the most popular chains like Ether or like Binance Smart Chain, but other chains too. So far, we breached Avalanche, we breached Huobica chain, we breached Sela. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. We breached Polygon. And I would say that most of the liquidity being transferred by Allbridge at the moment, it is between Solana and Polygon. It
Yeah.
is like the most popular one.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly like understated that there isn't a lot of bridges that are supporting things like Solana non-EVM chains. I mean, there's a couple out there that are building. There's Wormhole, but it doesn't necessarily have all the operability that something like Allbridge has.
I deeply respect our partners from
Yes.
Wormhole. Currently, Wormhole supports Ether, it supports Terra, it supported it like from the day one of their deployment. And as of my knowledge, they recently added Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah, and so
But for
it's
Polygon Avalanche, it's just not there yet.
yeah, and I imagine it'll come at some point, but it's kind of not even because I use Wormhole. Wormhole is great, but it's just kind of showing an example that Allbridge is really kind of chasing after this mantra of truly being
Mm.
Allbridge. I know there's a lot of other highly regarded bridges that are solely EVM. they don't even support Solana yet. They have it on their roadmap, but it's not quite there yet. So I think that's something that's incredibly important, especially for Solana. The friction before to bridge a couple months ago, 3 months ago, it was incredibly hard to get liquidity onto Solana, even from centralized exchanges. You couldn't get it off of Binance for a while ago. It was only really FTX, Blockfolio for a little bit, but now it's really opened up. And this is kind of opening up the floodgates. Without bridges and ample ramps for liquidity, we wouldn't be able to see a lot of this capital flow into Solana. And kind of spinning off of that, you went ahead and you actually set up a live demonstration for us for anyone who hasn't bridged before. So we can pop up your screen here and kind of just run through that. I think it'll be super great for any new users or people who aren't too familiar with Allbridge.
Sure, I would be happy to do that.
Yep, just throw. Awesome. I will add that.
Let me know when it works correctly. I hope that it should.
Yep, we're all good now. We see you on Quick Swap here. It looks like on Polygon.
Yes, I decided to make this presentation starting from Polygon and going to Solana because, as I previously mentioned, it is our most popular those are the most popular chains that are currently being used on the bridge. So our journey here, it actually starts with getting USDC, for example, on Polygon. Now, I will connect my wallet. Okay, so most of the users using Polygon, they start with Matic, obviously, because this is the gas token available here. So what I suggest is that we buy some portion of USDC on Polygon using the Matic on QuickSwap. I will buy 10 because I have already the balance of 90, and it would make a nice figure of 100 USDC that we will use later on. I don't want to use the existing balance. I want it all to be done in real time.
Awesome. And then I'm just kind of curious, do you guys support other assets than USDC? And is there more liquidity for USDC? Is there a reason why it might be more favorable?
We support a lot of assets, but there are those assets we focus mainly on. And we will probably get to this part of the discussion later on when we will speak about stables and non-stables and how do we pick up the assets that we want to use. And it is important. And it is also, it links us to another point of this discussion, is what happens with the liquidity, which assets are more liquid than the other. So for now, I decided to go with the USDC, as USDC is highly liquid on Solana, and the bridging USDC from Matic to Solana, it gets a lot of interest from the users.
Awesome. Yeah. So you're this is one of the go-to bridge transactions that goes on. So it's nice for any beginner users. USDC stablecoins are really nice to bridge with because they typically have the most liquidity, kind of getting rid of any slippage or losing any funds in the bridging process. And so it looks like we've gone ahead there. We are waiting for...
I'm waiting for the transaction to finalize.
Awesome.
Maybe we will give it a few moments. If we don't see it in the mainnet, we can always go with the existing balance. But I thought that for our experiment, it is better to do everything like it is supposed to be done.
Awesome. Yeah. Won't be the end of the world if we have to use the existing balance, though.
Sure. I also think that in the meantime, when we will process the transaction, this one would be picked up by the nodes.
Yep. And kind of just to fill in here, we did discuss liquidity a little bit. And this was something I've done a little bit of research. I'm not going to stand here and act like I'm the most technically adept, especially when it comes to smart contracts. I'm just kind of curious of how you guys set up these liquidity pools. It looks like you're doing it with well-regarded other AMM dexes such as Saber, comes to the top of my mind. how do you
Yes.
set up these liquidity pools? And we can just kind of start there. How do you kind of set these up? And
Let's
it
see
looks like,
here, the
yeah.
transaction just confirmed.
Cool. So we'll put that question on ice. I'll be able to come
Yes,
back to it.
we will have to wait for the next transaction to
Yep.
come. But meanwhile, let's put it. So yes, we now see that the current balance of USDC on my account is 100 USDC rather than 90 that you have seen just a second ago. So that means that the transaction confirmed. We have exchanged Matic to USDC, right?
Yep.
Okay, now we go to Allbridge. Here on the bridge, we select the chains. So currently we support Avalanche-based Celo, Ether, Huobi, Chain, Polygon, and Solana. We hope to add 3 more chains in November, but we can come to this later. And then when we select the originating chain, we will also select the destination chain. In our case, this is Solana, and we will select the asset, in our case, USDC. I will connect my MetaMask because we use the MetaMask for this transaction. And we now have here 100 USDC. We will use all of this amount. I don't mind. I will sign the transaction with MetaMask.
Awesome. And that was a very negligible bridge fee. It was about 25 cents for anyone who didn't catch that. So very efficient there on that. And now we're just waiting for this first transaction to go through.
We, by the way, can also talk separately about the fee and the bridge fee, where they originate from, and what is our vision towards them. We can actually do that now because we have 95 more transactions and confirmations to be done before we can get to Solana.
Awesome.
Or we can start with your previous question.
Well, let's touch on the bridge fees because my question was kind of a 2-part question. So is there some sort of, is this going to a treasury or something? That's kind of my first thought, or what's sort of the idea behind the fees here, bridge fees?
Bridge fees, they mostly go to treasury. That is absolutely true. Community has been asking me a lot about staking of the bridge token. And I have seen a lot of crypto projects, and unfortunately, some of them, they use staking just for the means of staking. Like you stake the project token, and for that, you get the percentage on top of those tokens that you staked, like bank deposit. But it doesn't necessarily provide any use case.
Yeah, it's just creating inflation.
It's just creating controllable inflation, and it takes the tokens out of the circulation because people believe that if they stake the tokens together, then tomorrow they will have more tokens. And if those tokens raise in value, then they will ultimately benefit from that.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we speak about staking on the bridge, I mean 2 things about staking. First one, it is the fees. And we started the bridge with the flat rate for each transaction being made, no matter how big this transaction is. And I have seen on the bridge the transactions of 50 million USDC in one single transaction. And if you think about it, if you breach 50 million USDC, I haven't even seen in my life 50 million USDC in one place, then probably for you it is better to pay the flat rate rather than to pay the percentage from the transaction.
Okay, yeah.
So idea that we had in mind is that we will migrate after we update our smart contracts. Hopefully it will be in first 2 weeks to the next thing. There will be a possibility for users to either pay the percentage of the money they breach or stake the token to make it the flat rate.
Okay, I like that. That answers kind of one of my questions, like what is the purpose of Allbridge token? But yeah, that flat rate is definitely extremely important for people who are constantly bridging with more size. So I definitely like how that's a unique way to get the token locked up and have people actually holding it.
Yes, and we also don't want to make people who are using not really big transactions to be affected. So let's say if you do the transaction of 100 USDC, you can possibly pay just the percentage, 0.2% or something, and it's not a big problem for you. And we as the bridge, we want to give you the freedom to choose this path and not to buy any tokens and not to stake anything. It is just up to you. If you're a big player, if you bridge millions, then you will also have the choice either to pay the percentage or alternatively stake a small part of the tokens to get the flat rate back. I think it is fair.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I like how it's variable. It's not just sort of a one size fits all. You guys are trying to cater to both users there. And it looks like we were actually able to get that transaction to go through.
So now I will connect wallet. I personally prefer Phantom.
I'm
not advertising Phantom, but I just like it more.
Yeah, it's really clean. Definitely.
Wait. Yes. Okay. And now you receive the money. And by receive the money, that means that on the chain you want to get the money. You will also have the question about that later on, I suppose, if we can do the second part of the transaction for you. But for now, let's say you are eager to pay for the second part too, to redeem the money on the chain you bridge to.
All right, so you're going through to receive. So what were to happen if you were not to receive there? Were you saying it automatically will bridge over at some point?
It will stay on the bridge until you redeem it. We suppose that our users, when they send the money, they actually expect it to get on the other chain.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. So just the simple transaction there. And that's just getting it, I mean, from my technically inept stance, that's going through the Allbridge contract now is in kind of in layman's terms what's going on.
Yeah. So now the transaction is pending. Hold on, it is quick on Solana.
Yeah.
So you received APUSDC. What is APUSDC? It is USDC brought to you by Allbridge from Polygon. We use 2 letters to get it. And now we say that if you want to use the USDC on Solana, we partner with Saber, so you can swap APUSDC to USDC on Solana. That's what is going to happen now.
Awesome. And that was just done straight through the interface there. You didn't have to go through Saber?
No. You don't have to go to Saber. We tried to make this project, to put most of the technical stuff under the hood and that for users, it would be easier. Okay, transaction is successful. And now, again, not advertising, just showing those AMMs I personally use. We go to Orca.
Yep.
We connect the wallet. And here on the Orca wallet, we see that I currently have just a little bit less than 100 USDC because we paid 25 cents commission from the USDC being transferred here. Yep. And I want to use those USDC to buy, if you don't mind, I will buy Allbridge token.
Let's go for it, yeah.
I mean, for me, it makes perfect sense, right? It's not like I'm asking everyone to buy Allbridge. You can buy whatever token you want, but for myself, I will buy Allbridge for this. And this is the, okay.
Boom.
Is getting approved.
Yep.
But it's already USDC, like USDC on Solana, brought to you by Saber using our help.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've used some other bridges and it's not the end of the world. It's just kind of clunky when you end up with this wrapped bridge token and you're like, okay, what DEX do I need to go to find liquidity? Allbridge, I was actually surprised to see that you're just able to do the unwrapping or the swap just right there on the UI. So that's incredibly kind of nice there.
Yeah, it's stuck in a proof. It happens sometimes. Let me update the page. Probably connect, exchange, approve, confirming, and boom, yes, exchange complete. Now, so essentially you use your USDC on Polygon to get to Solana and to buy ABR on Solana.
Yeah, and that was extremely seamless. There's just a little bit of waiting time there for transactions, but that's kind of what we're talking about when I jumped on this stream, having something where frictionless bridging across multiple chains that didn't really exist 4 months ago. And we were now able to swap $100 of USDC to Allbridge across different networks at the cost of a little more than 25 cents, which is amazing there.
Yes. And I can probably turn off my screen now.
Yep. And I'll just, perfect. There we go.
And
kind of just go ahead.
The other part of your staking question about what happens with the whole staking thing and where all those money go to. So when we take the fee from the users of the bridge, and it is up to the users whether to do it flat rate or non flat rate, but in the end of the day, we want to split the fees that we received with those people who stake the bridge tokens. And this is what we believe is to be the fair distribution. So by the staking, I mean two types of staking. First type, staking as a user to lower your fees. And second type, staking as a staker to get the fees that are there in the ecosystem.
Okay. So you're kind of getting dual purpose staking there, which is really unique. And I like that there's more kind of real world value that's being tied in. And kind of just to jump over to my question that we got halfway through, and I'll kind of start on a different angle. I know you guys are setting up partners here, something from a lot of my background in DeFi. I've dabbled a lot in Solana, but one project or like the network I'm very familiar with is Binance Smart Chain. So AnySwap, who is pretty prominent on Binance Smart Chain, a few months ago had some issues with their multi-chain router, and they did have a sort of exploit in their liquidity pools. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with that. How do you sort of combat against these exploits? It seems like you guys have a slightly different system. You guys aren't setting up your own liquidity pools. And I'm just curious, like, what if you could kind of give a basic explanation of what's going on under the hood and how you guys kind of go about security over at Allbridge and APY Swap.
There are two angles to answer your question. Now, the first one is that we don't actively manage the liquidity here and there. And when it comes to the transfer of the tokens, in my example that you have seen right now, we rely on Saber as our partner who provides the liquidity and the pools associated with the assets being breached. We don't do it ourselves. Now, for the second part of your question, in terms of security, in terms of what recently happened to the, let me double check. I spoke to my CTO today about that, and I really asked him how can we comment this AnySwap multi-chain router exploit.
Yes,
you're referring to. So what he told me that AnySwap, due to their architecture, they used semi-random numbers while signing the transactions in their signatures, and that because it was semi-random, it effectively led to the situation when people were able, by guessing the process of this semi-random thing, getting back to the private keys. And in our architecture and in our randomization algorithm, we really randomize them. So we will not be affected by this particular exploit. And I'm definitely not promising that we will never be affected by any other exploit. And we work on security. But at the same time, we understand that the hackers, they also are looking for new ways, new vectors of attack. And I can't say that we will never be attacked. That would be stupid to say that. But as I have double checked, this particular attack in our architecture, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting. I just brought that up as an example because that's something I kind of remember. And it just, for me, what seems to happen is when you are switching between multiple chains, it does get a little more complex. So just nice to kind of hear from your guys' end on that. I also, that opens up a couple other questions. I know you guys seem to take security pretty seriously. You had an audit recently from Hackin. You did a bug bounty. I've spoken to Dima. I believe he's the CEO of Hackin. He's came on here on a security summit. Oh,
oops, sorry.
no,
Are you all right?
yeah, I'm fine. But
That's
my
okay.
Aurorian is
Yes, you.
Gonzo. It's done.
Yeah, but take your time. You can fix it if you want. I'll wait.
No, it's fine. It's gonna fall down again. This is like a daily thing. I was doing another stream right before this and it fell down. I just couldn't go without not having the Solana NFT on a Solana live stream. But anyway, back to kind of what we were getting at there. So you guys had the hacking audit. I'm curious kind of what ongoing security measures, because this is like, it's honestly a game of cat and mouse, right? You guys are always putting out updates. There's always kind of hackers looking for these exploits, backdoors. How do you guys keep an onus on constant security?
What we want to do here is we really want to start opening our code. And I think that being open source, it is really important. And we want to link it with additional audits, because, the more open you are, the more potential attacks you can get from hackers on one side. But on the other side, if you see not everyone who is evaluating your possible exploits is bad. And there are a lot of white hats that will be willing to contribute and not just steal the money, but give it back. So how we see it right now is that we get, let's say, next audit report from one more security company, then open up part of the code, then get one more, open up more code. And if we balance that right, that means that not only those companies that are issuing the security audits report are involved, but the community too. But we want to reveal the code to community on step-by-step basis, not all in once. So in case we make mistakes somewhere, we leave a potential exploit possibility, it would not damage everyone. But I think this gradually getting more audits and revealing more code will at some point give us sort of like, I'm not saying 100% security, let's say 90% security possible.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the name of the game. You can't get complacent. At the end of the day, it is what it is. There's always human intervention. You could have thousands of hours of auditors kind of looking over your code, and we've still seen exploits, but it's definitely, you're reducing the risk exponentially as you start to get more of these audits on there versus just throwing the code out there willy-nilly. So I definitely think that's important. Was just kind of curious of your guys' stance there. Another thing, so you do partner with a lot of protocols on liquidity. I know Saber's a big one, and I saw some other ones on there as well. How do you ensure there's ample liquidity? I know Saber sets up some maybe incentive programs. How do you guys go about setting this up? I've had a couple instances, one in particular where I went to bridge over a brand new asset from Binance Smart Chain to Solana, and there was no liquidity there for me. It was like 30% slippage on my transaction. So it got better eventually, but kind of how do you ensure there is liquidity for these trades?
Look, first of all, I think that it is really a question to our partners rather than to us. Because if you get the token transfers to Saber, then in the end of the day, you should expect Saber to incentivize this pair. That being said, it is not all, and we are exploring the possibilities that we will also help to provide the incentivization. So on Saber, you normally receive SBR for participating in the pair, even single-sided. And that is kind of cool. I like the places where you can put the liquidity single-sided. Now, if we look into other places, we are currently speaking, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this one, but hopefully we will do the announcement like in the next 1 or 2 days. So it shouldn't be much of the secret. we will be bridging ABR to Polygon.
Okay.
And on Polygon, we will create a pair on APY Swap, hopefully.
Oh, that is actually really unique. Did you say APY Swap?
Yes, APY Swap on Polygon. So what we had in mind is that we will provide tokens on our side to incentivize the pair. And APY Swap will also provide the banana tokens to incentivize the pair. So this is possibly one of the way to go forward with the liquidity, that we will allocate the supply of our tokens to as the AMM platform we partner with.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't have any solid finalized business model. We are investigating. We're looking into the opportunities. We're trying to find the way to do it the best way, but we don't know it just yet. We just hope we are walking the right path.
Definitely. And I think that's really interesting, right? To a certain extent, if the tokens bridge, Saber is going to bring the liquidity. They're not going to let people sit there with tokens they want to swap. I also think it's really important. It seems you guys have identified this. If there are some pairs where, okay, maybe we do need some more liquidity, it looks like you guys are willing to potentially incentivize it. I'm knocking on wood as well that ape swap liquidity pool comes. That sounds really interesting, definitely. And kind of just moving forward, winding some things down. Another question we put on ice is kind of how you guys go about finding partners, whether that be just off the top of my head now, like Saber, Hacken, Ape Swap. How do you guys kind of go about selecting these partners? And yeah, that's pretty much the question there.
Look, we are totally open to all potentially useful partnerships. And we are pinging and we are looking everywhere. We are trying to find them using friends of friends. Like if you know a nice place, a nice partner to partner with, I would be more than happy to discuss with you. I will be traveling if we don't have much of the COVID restrictions to Lisbon to Breakpoint event, and I hope to find more partners there. There is no real strategy of how do you find the right partners, right? You just
Definitely.
try to talk to everyone who may be interesting and respond to everyone who is trying to reach out and find out the best way to partner up that would be a win-win for both parties.
100%. Yeah. And then just to open up this discussion, I think we've got some kind of great insight on Allbridge. We saw how seamless it was. There's multiple chains. Like this definitely opened up my eyes to Allbridge. I had previously had not used it. I dove in, did some research last night. I know our event coordinator, general manager at Solana, Teague, he actually bridged some BUSD over from Binance Smart Chain last night. And he's like, wow, this is too easy. Like, this is too easy for me to go buy NFTs on Solana now. So he was super stoked on that. I'm kind of just curious. You said you're over at APY Swap as well. What is sort of up next for APY Swap? What is the value proposition of that token? It almost seemed like the ABR token ties into that of some sort.
We designed APY Swap originally as the cross-chain protocol that helps people to exchange their different DeFi assets on various blockchains. Now, I have to say that when we were thinking about it, and it has been, when we started thinking about it, it was like over a year from now. And we thought that we can achieve that using tokenized vaults, where people lock in different assets, then the vaults are getting tokenized and you can get the share of the token. Right now, I tend to think about it in another way. After we have spent this year working and developing, I think that the right thing to go, if we speak about cross-chain assets and cross-chain bridges and cross-chain portfolios, is that we first do layer one, where we get the bridge. Bridge is really important, where people can send assets from one chain to another. And on the top of that bridge, we built a marketplace. We built a place where people can do the swaps. And those swaps the idea here, they are cross-chain swaps because they are eventually utilizing the bridge technology underneath that. And for now, it feels the best way to go forward. And this is where we really concentrate our development efforts. And this is how I see the next step for APY Swap Foundation, having bridge in and building the marketplace on top of it.
Yeah, that actually sounds amazing. And that kind of hammers right at what I opened up the stream with. Like a big issue we have with these DeFi networks is bridging the liquidity. And it's just friction and not necessarily transaction friction. That's one thing in its own, but the actual user experience friction. A lot of these things can be very clunky, having to approve 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 plus transactions. So having sort of the most seamless cross-chain swaps and having that as the end goal, while you guys already have kind of, it already seems extremely seamless, the idea of making it even more intuitive for the user, I think that is an amazing long-term goal to have. And that makes a lot of sense what you guys are building, kind of having APY Swap run on top of the infrastructure that you've built for Allbridge.
Yes, that is the plan, because I have seen and I have been researching into other cross-chain AMMs on the market. And while I am quite happy with some ideas that I see, I think that most of those projects, what they lack is they lack this layer underneath. And for us, the bridge itself, it puts us in sort of unique market opportunity because some things are easier for us that are for the other developers because we already have this cross-chain thing working. It is just same asset to same asset. And what we need to think over right now is what do we do is if we have different assets on one chain and on the other, how do we maintain liquidity and how do we make sure that this swap is beneficial for the users on both sides of the bridge? This is something we still need to think about, and this is work in process. But ultimately, it feels that we have this unique position where we have the bridge already up and running that may help us to move forward.
No, and that's incredibly interesting. And I think that sort of sums up most of the questions I had for you. I'm curious to maybe open the floor up to chat. We do have some people who have been actively chatting. I know I saw some other questions. If you guys want to drop them down there, anything for Andre, we'll see if he won't be able to pick them up. Can't guarantee all of them will have an answer, but we'll see what we can get into. Anyone
I'll
wants
try
to
as
drop?
much as I can.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll also scroll up if no one comes down because I did see a couple people. We did have some people chatting
Is
it
it
up
in
in here.
comments or where?
Yeah, up top in comments. It looks like we
Yeah,
just
okay.
got a question coming in.
Okay, let's talk.
Yeah. So does ABR or APY Swap have any plans to expand the team's near-term UI UX? Expand the team's near-term UI UX designer plus developer. I don't know if they're asking for expansion of the team or actual expansion of the UI itself. Maybe you can touch on both of those a little bit.
Okay, speaking about UI UX, and now we have currently less than a 1% of users using the bridge going to support. And I think this number, it is important. It means that we are doing most of the things right. I couldn't say all of the things right, but most of them right. That being said, we plan to migrate to the next level of UI within 2 months from now. And we are always happy to hear your feedback because eventually we are building this all for you. This product, it's not like something in the vacuum. It is the product built for users. So if you have any particular thoughts or suggestions, talk to us. We will be more than happy to include them in our next version, which, as I said, will come up until the end of the year.
Awesome.
Speaking
And
about
then,
the
yeah,
team,
go ahead.
yes, the team, it is important. The developers are extremely important. If things go well, I see that our development team would have 4 more developers stepping in November, essentially doubling up the development effort we have. And I will welcome anyone, not only the developers, but also product managers, marketing people, all of them. It is just, as you know, it is hard in this bull market to find the right people to join the project. If I had the chance, I would even grow further and faster. But I think that November would be a great leap forward in terms of the development and people we get into our team.
Awesome. Yeah. And then Adrian, it looks like you're into UI UX. Maybe get some good ideas. See, you never know. It does look like the team is looking to expand. It doesn't sound like a bad shot there trying to get in contact, pitch some ideas. Obviously, no guarantees, but you never know. And it does sound like Allbridge is looking for tons of expansion. To jump over to another question, someone was a little curious on the staking and fee split with the community and wanted a little bit of elaboration. I'm curious a little bit on that as well. I know you said you have the bridge fees. So that's one reason to, of course, lock it up for a yield that you'll get. You also have the lockup for the flat rate fee. Will there also be any sort of ABR extra incentives added, or are you guys kind of not looking to do that, introduce inflation, or is there a small amount? I'm just curious there for some
Uh,
clarity.
the fair answer here is we want to try to play with different incentives, but by no means we want to damage the token economy as it is right now. So making too big inflation right now would basically kill the token price and people would be upset. We don't want to do that. However, controllable inflation, where we can see that the number of tokens flowing into the ecosystem being balanced by the number of tokens being locked in to get the maximum, seems like the right way to go. So what we're doing right now, and I have seen the questions even in our group and here in the comments area and before, people are asking when staking, when staking, when staking. Staking is coming in, and the reason we are not saying any specific date, there are two actual reasons. First, to make staking available in the right way, where fees are distributed and where on one side and on the other you can stake the tokens to flat rate the fees, it requires the update of smart contracts. Update of smart contracts for us at the bridge requires making sure that all the liquidity locked in into the bridge is secure and safe. You realize how that important, because for all the users of the bridge, the existing ones, we don't want them to run into any trouble. Our current plan is that we will deploy the new smart contracts chain by chain. We don't want to deploy all the staking on all chains at once. We want to start with Solana specifically. We want to roll our next update on Solana. We want to make staking on Solana. We want to make flat rate fees on Solana. And we want to make sure that ABR being staked on Solana gets people the fees related to that. The timeline for that is, for now, the next 2 weeks, but I cannot promise you those 2 weeks. I would say from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, because we need to test the smart contracts. And for us, this security is currently the top priority, because if we deploy the new version of smart contracts and things go wrong, then eventually we will all be unhappy. So let's agree on that. For staking and for the new token economy, we will start on Solana, and we will deploy that from 2 to 4 weeks from now. That is what I can say.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I 100% agree with that. We've seen these kind of issues with, there's two sides of this sword: giving way too much APY and kind of just watching the token price plummet. The demand isn't reaching the incentives that are being pumped out. And then the other end is rushing to deploy these smart contracts and having it blow up in your face. I've seen both of these things happen to different projects at different times. So it's important that you guys are aware of this. It looks like the chat is really curious about staking here. I'm not sure how much we'll be able to get out of Andre here, but something I think is interesting. Are you guys thinking of something like a time lock mechanic to this staking to maybe keep tokens locked up for longer, or have you not quite got there yet?
We are still designing in our mind the staking mechanism. And this is exactly this part about the economy I told you about. And this is exact reason why we don't provide any fixed numbers just yet. So we want to see people stake the tokens, people get the fees flowing in, how much money that's going to be, how many people would stake the tokens to get the flat rate, how many people would be willing to pay the percentage, and what would be the eventual
Almost,
reward. Yes,
yeah.
the eventual reward. Now, this is part one of the economy. Part two of the economy, how do we find a way to incentivize people? Do we incentivize the transactions? Do we do any retroactive airdrops? Can we incentivize liquidity? Now, here, when we speak about staking, we speak about the tokens taken out of the circulation. When we speak about incentivization in any sort of the way, we speak about the tokens flowing into circulation. So how do we balance them? And this is really good question, and I'm not even sure anyone has the answer to it just yet. So
Yeah.
we want to slowly roll the updates. We want to start playing the numbers, and I even think that those numbers would not be set in stone. They may be 1 month like this or other months like that. We need to start working through that and see what we have. And if we see that the inflation is too big, the incentivization is too big, and people are just selling the token, the price going down, then probably we're doing something wrong. And we need to rethink this through. On the other side, if we see that we don't have the total liquidity value growing, TVL growing, that also means we're doing something bad because people are not interested to lock in, right? Then we need to increase the compensation. And we need to balance those two.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think that's incredibly important, kind of governing that flow, because, like you said, there's no holy grail to these things. It's honestly really complex trying to find the equilibrium between incentivizing users, bootstrapping that user base, and not overdoing it and kind of falling into an inflationary spiral. So I think that's really important. I've taken up a solid chunk of your time here, Andre. I will clear up one last question because this user might be having some issues here. They're wondering if you can change the destination address at the second step. I'm not sure if you've seen that, or I'm not sure if I saw that when we went through the bridge. Maybe you can help that user out a little bit.
No, I'm not sure if there is a way to change that. Probably there might be a way to cancel the transaction and get the first transaction out. I will look into that, but not sure about that right now. You see, changing destination address, it potentially creates a very big security breach option. I don't like that. I don't want to do that. I think it is better to make things like they are original. Person signing the transaction specifies the destination address, being able to claim back. Now, canceling the transaction, getting the money back, it may be an option. Then specifying a new destination address and sending it once again. I just don't think that changing destination address later on is secure enough.
That makes sense. And I'd like to kind of wrap that up there. Just wanted to see if we could get that last question answered. For any people that we missed their questions, I know I still see some things trickling in. Where will it be best to reach you guys? I'm thinking maybe your guys' Discord. Where should these people go from here if they have anything?
We always look into our Telegram group, and
Okay.
a lot of people are communicating there. We are even thinking about creating a separate group for the, like we call them ambassadors, for people who are more involved in the project than people just coming in asking when Binance and then going out. I'm just kidding.
I mean, you can already see it happening here in the chat. I've went ahead and dropped the Telegram in there just for anyone who doesn't need any or who might need any further support. That will probably be the place to go. Other than that, Andre, I really appreciate you joining us, jumping on the stream. I'm sure when some other future developments come out, the team here at Solana News would love to have you back on. It was extremely seamless working with you guys. And I definitely enjoyed getting insight into your bridge. I definitely think this is one of the, for lack of better terms, sectors we're beginning to realize has a lot of potential inside of DeFi, reducing the friction between all these chains, kind of cross-network swaps and bridges. So I think you guys are killing it over here at Allbridge. I love the insight. And I just appreciate you joining us on here. It seems like it's the evening over there for you.
Yes, but I really loved today's conversation and how meaningful it was. Because, in the past, I have participated in different AMA sessions, and it felt like I've been asked prepared questions from the people who are not even interested in the project. And here I felt that you are genuinely interested in the project, and people who are watching us are interested in the project too. And it is something really important for me. And I would be absolutely happy to come back and to share more information. Maybe we can even structure some exclusive news for you.
Yes,
If
would
that may
be
help, and continue our cooperation, because I really enjoyed our conversation tonight. Sorry, it's tonight for me. Maybe it's not tonight for you.
same. It's pretty early over here, but getting the day started. But yeah, thank you so much, Andre. I'm going to go ahead and boot you off here real quick and then just go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Peace out. So that was very amazing. I've done a handful of live streams. Andre was one of the better guests I've had come on. He gave us some really kind of important and interesting insight into Allbridge, what they're building. He even went as far as kind of sharing with us some future releases that were coming up. I'm sure there was some information that was put out for maybe the first or second time. So glad that we were able to kind of pass some information to you guys. And I definitely enjoyed the stream. I learned a ton. And I really just like how much support Allbridge has. So I think that's really important. I'm excited for their future developments. And then on our end, I'd just like to wrap this up. It'd mean it's a huge help if you guys go ahead and like the video, subscribe. We'll be setting up all kinds of live streams here. We're not just covering Solana. We're doing things on all of DeFi, but our main focuses are Solana and Binance Smart Chain. So you'll be seeing tons more streams with projects. Andre mentioned people like Hackin and APY Swap. We've had them on the YouTube here. And so there's tons of content that's going to be coming out, and we're only looking to ramp it up from here. So please go ahead, like and subscribe. And I look forward to joining you guys on my next stream. Peace out, everyone. And thank